This is Environmental Science 2, Chapter 7, Part 3 on Atmosphere and Climate. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be discussing the ozone layer, as well as damage and effects of the ozone layer. The word ozone is another one of those terms in the news and the media that often is used incorrectly. And has a bad connotation in some cases. Ozone is a molecule that we need in our atmosphere. Ozone absorbs ultraviolet light from the sun, and it acts kind of like a natural sunscreen for the surface of the earth. The sun puts out two different types of ultraviolet rays, UVA and UVB rays. The ozone itself takes care of the majority of UVA rays. And in order to keep our natural sunscreen, we have to keep that ozone layer that's found up in the stratosphere. We have to keep that intact. Some of the ozone eaters of the atmosphere, one of the main violators of ozone destruction, are a category of chemicals that we call chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. Lots of CFCs are used for coolants in refrigerant systems, and also for making and manufacturing products like styrofoam. Chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, are very damaging to the ozone shield. These CFCs remain in the atmosphere for a very long time. They do not disperse, they do not break down. But what they do is they, up in the stratosphere, ultraviolet radiation will break up the bonds in the CFC molecule. At the Earth's surface, these chemicals are stable and they won't break down. But once they get up past the troposphere and into the stratosphere, that ultraviolet radiation will start to break apart chlorofluorocarbons. So as ultraviolet light comes in, those bonds are busted up. And really what's the main violator and the main ozone-eating part of a CFC is the chlorine molecules. The chlorine molecules will destroy many ozone molecules. Most CFCs contain at least one chlorine molecule, but they can have up to 4. And one single chlorine atom can destroy over 100,000 ozone molecules. So it becomes very important to limit the amount of CFCs that are being put into the troposphere, because those will eventually rise and get up in the stratosphere. And once that ultraviolet light breaks down the CFCs, then the ozone layer can start to deplete. Believe it or not, the largest damage to the ozone layer is above Antarctica. A place called Haley Bay, Antarctica, is where research was taking place, that it was noticed that the ozone layers above the South Pole are thinning. The first signs of ozone destruction really were discovered in 1979, and those measurements have been taken on the Earth ever since. And since those ozone molecules are being destroyed in the troposphere, the ozone molecules can't get up to the stratosphere to be replaced. And because of global wind circulation, generally, just like acid precipitation, generally the places that are doing the polluting don't get the resulting damage. So, Antarctica, the only people that are living in Antarctica on a temporary basis are scientists. So the amount of pollution that's coming from there is very minimal. However, because of global wind patterns, the damage tends to reside over the South Pole. Here's an image taken in 1979 of the relative thickness of the ozone layer. The ozone layer is measured in Dobson units, and in the diagram here, the more red or yellow the color is, the thicker the ozone layer is, and the blue and the purple spots are where the damage is. So this is a view from 1979. And we can fast forward to the year 2015. Generally, that hole is remaining the same size. It encompasses now, most of the damage is most of Antarctica, over most of Antarctica. But remember, the ozone layer can be repaired as long as we limit those emissions of CFCs and other oxide chemicals that can destroy that ozone layer. So what's the big deal? Why do we care about a giant hole? Or why do we care about having an ozone? Well, remember that ozone layer is like Earth's sunscreen. If we don't have sunscreen, more ultraviolet light will get through to the surface of the Earth. Ultraviolet light can destroy plants and bacteria. They can handle, again, every living thing has a range of tolerance of conditions that it can handle. If plants can't perform photosynthesis correctly, then there's going to be less oxygen put back into the air. Also, from a human standpoint, the more ultraviolet light that gets through to the surface, that can actually mutate our skin cells and cause skin cancers like melanoma. So again, how do we stop this destruction? Many international agreements have been made to limit CFC productions. One of the first ones was in the late 70s in Canada for the Montreal Protocol. A group of developed nations, Europe, ourselves, Canada, of course, and China, agreed to limit chlorofluorocarbon production. The Montreal Protocol was again modified in 1993 to make sure that the agreements were being upheld and that countries were doing what they said they would do. And they also made some stricter rules for limiting CFC production in 1993. And these conferences tend to occur every few years. Again, they review the policies that all of the nations agreed on, and they try to continue to limit productions of CFCs as well as other oxide chemicals that are damaging to the ozone. This has been Chapter 7, Part 3 on Atmosphere and Climate.